everybody. Where am I today? On this wonderful Monday morning in May. That rhymes, doesn't it? I am at Great Ouseburn, which is north of York. And before I get going on this ride, I'll show you a couple of things which are quite interesting, if you can hear me, because it's quite breezy today. I'll just take you down here, slightly off the route. Can you see ahead on the right? It's a sweet little brick bridge, a listed bridge, an ancient bridge. Well, ancient, it's probably Georgian, and it was built for the manor that used to be over there. I think it was called Kirby Hall, now demolished. But this is quite a sweet little ornamental bridge. It's only single file traffic. It's been repaired quite recently. This goes over a little stream, and here on the right is the church. Now this road leads to Little Ouseburn. That was Great Ouseburn. This is Little Ouseburn, and this is Little Ouseburn Church, which we'll just go and take a look at. There's a Commonwealth war grave here as well, like there was at the cycle ride on Saturday at Elm. Holy Trinity Church, Little Ouseburn. Creaky gates. It's like there's some old steps to mount a horse there, maybe. Anyway, what's interesting here, apart from the lovely old church, move my camera a bit, is this over there, which is a mausoleum which was built for whoever it was that owned Kirby Hall. Quite an interesting building. Quite a large building. This is such a peaceful churchyard. It really is peaceful. Let's go and take a look and see if we can see inside. I'll just put my bike down. What can we see? Safeway security. I don't know if you can see, there's what looks like a vault under there, and there's an urn. And the niches are now empty, but I think they used to be filled with statues of people that were of interest to the gentleman who was buried here originally. I think quite a few people were buried here, and I think it got full in the end, so they had to expand into the churchyard. It's a beautiful little old church, isn't it? Beautiful. When I was last year here, I had my lunch here, and there was a very sad little grave. I don't know if I can find it. It was of a child. I could spend ages, couldn't I, here? This is such a peaceful place. I needed some peace and quiet today, which is why I came here. Ah, this is the war memorial. Men from the Little Ouseburn parish who died in between 1914 and 1919. So presumably people who died once the war had finished as well. Two Robinsons, so presumably from the same family. So very, very sad. Very sad. But what a peaceful place to rest. Could actually spend all day here, I think, for the peace and quiet which I needed today. On my last video, you probably remember I said my mum has dementia and it's getting worse, and oh boy did it get worse over the weekend. I just needed to get out, and she's being cared for today, so that's good. She's at a day centre. Ooh, creaky gates. Okay. There's a little notice along here about the beck. I'll ride over the bridge and take a look at that before we head off on the main ride. The camera. So back across that sweet little bridge. I think the manor house used to be over there. There's still a gatehouse to it which exists over there on the road. Now a private house. Now then, what's it say? Let's have a look. Creaky brakes. Right, it says, if you can see it, this stream is called Ousegill Beck, because of course it's the River Ouse that runs behind us, parallel, that runs into York. Well, as I said in my last video, the River Ouse begins as the River Ure, U-R-E, and the River Swale flows into it, and it trundles along towards York, where it sort of at one point becomes the River Ouse, the famous river flowing through York. Oh, this is back Kirby Hall, the one I mentioned that was demolished. It was built in 1755 by the Thompson family, who also built the little bridge and the mausoleum we just looked at in the church. The heir to the estate was killed in the First World War. So he might have been listed on that war memorial. And the distraught owners felt unable to remain there, and the family moved away, and the hall was sold and pulled down in 1920. That's so sad. It says the church dates back to the 11th century, possibly on the site of an earlier Saxon church. Oh, Anne Bronte sketched this, and she was a governess locally, and she used to go to that church. You can see the church over there, and that was her sketch of it. so interesting. There's a lot more here, so please come and do this ride and have a look at all the history. There's so much history around here, it's unbelievable. And loads more than I know. So, right, we're going on and we are joining the, hang on, we're joining the Way of the Roses cycle route that we were on my last ride, that goes all the way from Morecambe in Lancashire all the way to Bridlington in East Yorkshire, a coast to coast route. So we're turning right here. Hello. We're turning right towards the little toll bridge at Old Walk that crosses the, I think it's the River Yore there, it hasn't quite become the River Ouse yet. This bridge was closed for about 18 months, only reopened earlier this year. It was taken apart and reconstructed. It's listed, so how to do it very sympathetically. It used to be really rickety. But it's still kind of rickety because it's constructed from wooden slats. It's free for cyclists and motorbikes to cross and 40p for cars. The owner applied to put up the fee, but I think it's the local council said no, got to keep it at 40p. So I don't expect they make much money. And they wouldn't have made any money while it was closed and being refurbished, and I bet that cost a fortune. It's not owned locally, it's owned by someone down south who's probably not that happy that he bought it. It's probably costing him more than he gets in toll fees, because there's a little man stands by the toll house collecting the money, so presumably he has to pay him as well. I took some photos of the toll bridge the other week, which I'll share with you on this video. Quite a nice spot. You often get people boating or paddle boarding beneath the bridge. This ride that I'm doing is fairly flat. We go around in a circle to Boroughbridge and then we follow tiny lanes and villages on the Way of the Roses cycle route back to where we started. It's quite a short ride, but it's perfect for when you want to get out and de-stress, especially on a gorgeous day like this. I just love this area, really like this area. So if you're thinking of bringing your bike up to near York, do these cycle rides that I've videoed. They are really just lovely and not well known to people who aren't from this area unless they've done the coast to coast Way of the Roses cycle route. Anyway, we're coming up to the toll bridge. There's the man collecting the tolls. It will be a bit bumpy, but not as bumpy as it used to be. Morning. Right, crossing the river. Picnic tables down there. There we go. Oops. There's a speed bump at either side, so watch out for that. And I think there's another one coming up. So don't race across this bridge. Here we go. Move up. We're about to turn left towards Old Walk Village. Of course, when that bridge was closed, it messed up the way of the Roses cycle route, and people had to come a different way and missed out a whole load of prettiness because of it. But now everything's back in operation. Farm smells around here. Ooh, good thing you can't smell this. Turning left here. We will be retracing some of the route that I did on the last video on Saturday through Flowers and Helperby. Oh, and of course Myton-on-Swale. Got some more information about that since I posted the last video. Not much more, but some. Yeah, quite a lot actually. Old Walk here, it cuts off the corner over there that we cycled past on Saturday with the plague cross at Owl. And if you want to know about that, watch my last video. It's the Easing World video. This little village, it's got a church which I think is 19th century. It has that look about it. It looks a bit like this church at Little Cesse that we cycled past on Saturday, maybe built by the same architect. And Old Walk Manor is on the right. It's now a hotel with a big modern extension. Obviously this village served the local manor. Morning. Well, it's afternoon, it's 1:10. It's a pretty village, this is. Pretty. And quiet. Ish. Fairly quiet. There is a footbridge across the river here that, while the toll bridge was closed, you could walk your bike across it, but it's not a cycle path. I never did it. I just avoided this area while the bridge was closed. Golf courses everywhere here. Well, one on the left and there was one back there. Might be the same one, I don't know. Old Walk. Here's the little church. It's very sweet. Interesting construction. Pebbles and brick stripes. After my last video, I was researching a load of stuff about the area, and there is so much history that it's impossible to cram it all in. I'll try to share a bit of it with you today. Funny, tourists come to York and they just go to York and they don't really come to these villages north of York. They just do York, and it's very crowded in York, as you can imagine, all the tourists. There's so much more to see though. Boroughbridge, of course, was famous for a while as a location for Julian Norton on the Yorkshire Vet series on Channel 5. It's absolutely rammed with history, is Boroughbridge. One thing I've forgotten to do is research where the old railway station was in Boroughbridge. So we'll probably come to Boroughbridge again and do another ride, because there's so much history I can't possibly talk about it all here. And there's also some interesting things, like not on this route, but on another route that I can do, on the route from Ripon to Boroughbridge. There are 3 of what are known as the Devil's Arrows, which are thought to be Neolithic in origin. There were 4, maybe more, but there were at least 4, and one of them was removed to help construct one of the bridges at Boroughbridge, so I understand. Unfortunately, somebody gave planning permission for a housing estate to be built the other year, more affordable housing, built opposite the Devil's Arrows, which is a shame, because it was quite quiet there, apart from you've got the A1 and also the old, what used to be the A1 running alongside it, so maybe it's not so quiet anyway. So that will feature on another ride. Soon we'll be turning left, and then we'll be going left again onto the road where I was on Saturday. It takes us through the village of Flowerth, I think it's pronounced Flowerth. Not there, there's a couple of left turns that always confuse me, but they're just leading to farms. Guess what, I forgot to take an antihistamine again for my hay fever, so apologies for any sniffles like that. Ooh. Turn left here. So we go through Flowerth again, and then not too long after that we turn left into Myton, towards Myton-on-Swale, tiny little village off the beaten track. And the village itself, as you'll have seen on Saturday's video, is on a no-through road. But you can get through on its helperby by going past the old stables belonging to the hall, Myton Hall. It adds a little bit of distance to the ride. It's not a shortcut, it's quite the opposite, but it's quieter and much more relaxing and interesting than just cycling along the main road. So here we are in Flowers. Apologies if you don't like me chatting away on these cycle rides about all sorts of things, but I find it quite cathartic, and didn't used to talk on the cycle rides really. At one point I put a musical background on it, which many of my followers said, no, don't do that, we want to hear the noises on the cycle ride. Well, one of the noises is now me rambling on about stuff. Oh, frog in my throat. My cycle coach said yesterday, he said cycling is a real stress buster, because I am super stressed at the moment with my mother and her dementia. So I'm stress busting today. Let's bust the stress. It's good because exercise gets the endorphins going, and the endorphins are feel-good hormones which make you feel better and happier, hopefully. I also find editing the videos quite cathartic. What isn't cathartic is waiting while they publish on my video editing software. Saturday's video took about an hour to publish, and then it takes an equally long time to upload to YouTube. And then you might find, as I did yesterday, that what you've uploaded is all out of sync. The little maps were out of sync. So I had to take it off YouTube and start again. Well, not start again, but go back into the editing software, put all the maps back into sync and publish it, and when I get back I'll upload it to YouTube, and then I'll do the same with this video. Here we turn to Myton-on-Swale. As I said last time, the River Swale winds its way all the way from Swaledale, which is the Yorkshire Dale that's the north of Wensleydale, at the top of the Yorkshire Dales really. And the River Swale joins the River Yore, which I talked about a few minutes ago. And then together, after a while, they become the Ouse. And I think it flows into the River Humber in the end and out into the North Sea. Here are the horses again. One's on the other side of the road this time. Hello, horses. I don't know what those horses do, they always seem to be there, and I feel sorry for them, all chained up and in the sun, or the rain if it's raining. This little farm sells eggs and sweets, usually, and that in there, but doesn't seem to have anything today. Don't fast forward this video just because I did this on Saturday, because I've got a bit more information. Well, I put some of it on the other video when I went back into it this morning. Over there you can see Myton Hall, which, as I said last time, was the home for quite a while of Sir Ken Morrison, who made his fortune from Morrison's supermarkets. And so I asked the question in the title of my last video, what do Robert the Bruce and Morrison's supermarkets have in common? Well, the answer is that Robert the Bruce and Ken Morrison are both associated with Myton-on-Swale, because it was Robert the Bruce's troops from Scotland that came up here to kick British into touch, or shall I say, sorry, the English into touch. It's a massive, massive historical period, loads of stuff about it. It's the first Scottish War of Independence, which I only know a bit about. There's loads of information about it. Apparently though, the name war wasn't used then, so it wasn't called a war, but that's essentially what it was. And I'll tell you what I managed to glean as to why this is the case. I want to take you back to the Iron Bridge, built in 1868, I think it was, across the River Swale, a beautiful, beautiful iron bridge that has recently been restored, but which doesn't actually lead to anywhere apart from a field and where you can take the dog walking, and it's a bridle path so you can go on, take your horse there as well. But what I mean is it's not a road bridge. Here's the little village. Couldn't find out much about the church. I googled it. So if you know about the church here, please comment below. So I imagine I'll be coming through here again because I like it here. So we'll be turning right here when we've just visited the bridge again, which is down here on a no-through road. I didn't realise how important this village, or rather the battle associated with this village, was. I'd never heard of it. Funny, last time I was here I was pointed out that phone box and said I was going to Easing World to look for a listed phone box. Well, the fact is that those old red telephone boxes, designed by Sir George Gilbert Scott's son, famously designed Giles Gilbert Scott. Many of them, I think it's 2,000 of them at least, are listed, and so that's probably listed too. So we're going down here to the bridge. The road gets a bit bumpy because the tarmac gives way to an unmade road, and the little bridge is ahead. Well, it's not a little bridge, it's quite a big bridge. I wonder if we cross it, if we can get a photograph or something of underneath, because apparently it's quite ornate. We'll try to have a look first. See, it looks as if it should lead to somewhere. It's even tarmacked here. It just leads to a green lane that then ends up going by the side of a field. Ooh. Oh, this tells you all about the battle, which is thought to be somewhere over there. Looks like it's a footpath here. strange gates. Very strange gates. Right. Hello, doggy. So it says on the 20th September 1319, 5 years after the Battle of Bannockburn, these meadows were the scene of the Battle of Myton. An inexperienced army of English clergy, farmers and townspeople were defeated by Scots soldiers en route to York. I understand they'd heard that Edward I's Queen, Isabella, was in York, and they had an idea to capture her, maybe for a ransom or something, but the king got word of it and moved the Queen out of the way. This bridge, 1868, I was right about that. So, a local source at the time of the battle said, I think it was over 4,000 Yorkshiremen were killed, and 1,000 of them ended up just over there, I guess, in the Swale. There was another bridge here, but we don't quite know where that was. It might have been here, but people don't know, apparently. It's also known as the Charter Battle. I think that's right. Charter being because there was a large number of clergy involved, and yes, the Archbishop of York was part of it, fighting, and a lot of clergy from the area and townspeople and so on were actually pressed into service. They're all inexperienced, and the reason the Scots wanted to give them a kicking was, I mean, this was after the time of Braveheart, if you've seen the historically inaccurate film. I might get this wrong, and please, Scottish people, comment in the comments below, but apparently there was an ineffective king in Scotland, and some sort of council or committee decided to ask Edward I of England up there to give advice on what to do, but apparently I think he imprisoned or killed, I don't know which, this council, and decided that he quite fancied having governance of Scotland, which of course didn't please the Scots. And Robert the Bruce, who became King of Scotland, decided to give the English a kicking and to throw them out of the land, and they headed as far as York. They might have gone further, but after Berwick-on-Tweed they came here to Myton, where this battle took place. So peaceful now, just imagine if 4,000 were killed and 1,000 of those ended up in the river. Imagine those who didn't get killed, who just got injured. This peaceful place here must have been a bloody place. And now it's just this lovely Victorian bridge overlooking the gorgeous, peaceful River Swale. It's just another place you could stay all day. Sit on that seat over there and bring your sandwiches. It's a good thing about walking or cycling. You can get to all these peaceful places that if you were just driving or on the train you would miss altogether. Right, so that's visit number 2 to this lovely bridge. Next time I'm going to bring my lunch. Well, next time I'll do the ride that takes you over the bridge and you have to walk the bike through some of the meadows. It's quite interesting then because it's a shortcut to Boroughbridge and it goes past some interesting tree carvings. There's a family of owls which is amazing. I'm coming up behind you. It's okay. Excuse me. Beautiful little chapel or church. We will go into that at some point, but now we're going to turn off to go past Myton-Hall along what local cyclists call Ken's Corridor. Here's Ken's Corridor. This parkland apparently was built in the 19th, was designed and constructed and laid out, get it right, in the 19th century, whereas the hall on the left is late Stuart, late 17th century. And it's quite unique in the way it's not been added to or changed. I think it looks pretty much as it did when it was built. Can you see it? Very symmetrical, with a weather vane on top. I think symmetrical building started around about the Elizabethan era. Influenced by the Italian Renaissance. Hardwick Hall in Derbyshire is an example of an Elizabethan mansion with early classical design. And then, of course, before that, in Tudor times, everything was a little bit more higgledy-piggledy. But that Myton Hall is a beautiful example of a hall from its time. Now last time I said we're doing the same here, we're going past the old stable blocks, which were obviously built later than the hall, because they look to be 19th century. Divided into apartments now, but really nice looking. There's that water tower again, which I think people may live there because it's got a window at the bottom, who knows. It is so peaceful here. I want to live here. Look. Really nice Victorian stable plot. We're winding our way back to meet the road that we left when we turned off to Myton, and we'll be heading into Helperby again. And then past Helperby, instead of turning right, which we did on Saturday towards Easingwells, we'll be going straight ahead towards Boroughbridge, and we will be crossing the Swale again, a little further on from Helperby, on a bridge called Thornton Bridge. We're coming up to that walled garden on the left, which I think I found out belonged to Helperby Hall. That's one of the square turrets on one corner. There's another one a bit further on, there's some kind of all sorts of stuff there. The walled garden. Yeah. And Helperby Hall, I wasn't sure what it was on Saturday, but I've been doing a bit of research about it. Look, there's another of the square turrets. But the original hall goes back a few hundred years, but it's been extensively altered, and the bit at the front where we went last time looks as though it's 19th century, and I haven't found out yet why. It's got that strange ancient, I think 15th century French nursery rhyme inscribed above the door. So if you know again, let me know in the comments. Hi there. I found the text online and it's all about puppets, which is kind of weird. Puppets, not puppies. Marionettes. Les marionnettes font something or other. So this is Helperby. We came through here on Saturday. And on the left is Helperby Hall. I'm assuming it's now apartments. But this section is obviously not that old. And here you've got a French inscription, can you see it? Les marionnettes font, trois petits tours, I think it was, et puis s'en vont, which is a very old French nursery rhyme. How curious. I need to know why it's there, why French. Who knows? I hope you do, because you can let me know in the comments below. Let's head off. Oh, last time I didn't look at the little fountain. Well, this time I will. I also said I'd branch off to look at the little church, didn't I? Not the very hideously ugly Methodist church, but up the lane where I've never been. These are Victorian almshouses, I assume, and this is a fountain. To commemorate 60 years of Queen Victoria's reign. And also the 100th birthday of Lady Celia Hermione Milnes Coates. I'm guessing they lived in Helperby Hall. Right, on we go. I said there was a bakery or something on the right here, but it seems to have closed. It's a shame. Oh, butchers, that was it. village hall up there. I'm guessing that is a war memorial. So this is the hideous Victorian church, which is very hideous. Let's go and look at St. Peter's Church. I've never been up here, so why not? I'm not seeing any church. I don't like cycling up big gravel. It's like you go this way. The clue is in that name, Church House. So the church must be around here. It is lovely here. Commonwealth war graves here too, gosh. So these are all the people who would have died on English soil as opposed to on Flanders field. Oh yeah, this is another thing I was going to point out. This is a plaque in memory of the crew of the Halifax bomber, which crashed near here while returning to RAF Dishforth from a mission over Germany, and everyone was killed. We've got ages 20, 21, 19, 21, 23, 27 and 20. Every man was a volunteer. So all those young men, God, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? Google it online, and I think there's a few websites that talk about it. I don't think they were all buried here from what I remember. I think some of them were taken home, or I might be wrong, but so sad, isn't it? So sad. But we do get the church here. St. Peter's Church. Now then, it's Brafferton this. It's funny because Brafferton is, well, it's Helperby, Brafferton, and sometimes they refer to it as Helperby and sometimes Brafferton, because it's really two villages that kind of meet in the middle. Well, this is obviously the church at Brafferton. I'm quite interested in graveyards and cemeteries because, as I said on Saturday, I'm going to do some research at Undercliff Cemetery in Bradford, one of the great Victorian municipal cemeteries, with some amazing tombs. It's a bit like Highgate Cemetery in London, that sort of thing. But I've got a specific area of interest, apart from the fact that my ancestors are buried there, not in one of the mausoleums, just in an ordinary grave. I need to find where that grave is as well. Here we have the church. Now that ahead looks like it's been extensively modernised over the years. I'll have to look it up. And that's old at the end, and old this bit here. I'll have to look that up. It's also been repaired, but I know that our friends the Victorians were really into making churches and buildings look a bit more medieval than they actually were, even though they were medieval. They were into embellishing them to make them look more medieval, more Gothic. Quite funny, it happened with quite a lot of cathedrals too. Notre Dame in Paris being one, where Viollet-le-Duc, the French 19th century Gothic architect, tweaked the cathedral to look a bit more Gothic, and of course he designed that spire which burnt down and has now been reconstructed. Google it, it's amazing. It's an exact copy and it's beautiful. And I've learnt the French word for spire. It's flèche, la flèche. I studied Victorian Gothic architecture at university many years ago, back in the late 70s. Gosh. Right, so we'll get back on track now. But interesting, that. Very interesting. And so sad about these airmen. I guess this video is one way of remembering them, widening awareness. So we're going to join the beaten track again soon, and we'll be turning left opposite the pub like we did on Saturday, and we'll be going over the old track bed of the old railway line, which went from Pillmore, where it joins the East Coast Main Line, to Boroughbridge, and beyond that to Knaresborough, which of course links to Harrogate. Right, so we're turning here. Up we go. Past the affordable houses. Oh, the sun's gone in. Oh, that's the old parsonage. So it wasn't that grange. Not much to see off the track bed here, so I won't stop this time. But you can see a bit of it on my last video, the Easing World video, and I'll put a link to that video at the end of this one. And as I said, I forgot to Google where Boroughbridge station was, but I will next time. Or I'll see if I can find it on an old map. I can see the white horse on the hills over there. So I said those were the Howardian Hills, but I think they're the Hambledon Hills. They kind of meet, and above them is, well, they lead to the North York Moors. And the White Horse above Kilburn is a hill figure, but I don't think it's as old as you think it is. We'll go nearer to it on another ride. In fact, if you're lucky, you might even cycle up to it. It's a very steep route, winding and steep. But I've done it in one before, so I can do it in one again, hopefully. So on Saturday we turned right here, but this time we're going straight on. We're going to cross the Swale at Thornton Bridge before turning left towards Boroughbridge. Hello. This is Thornton Bridge. It's not a very beautiful bridge, so I won't stop and look at it. But I think it's old. I mean, it's iron, isn't it? We'll look it up, but it's not, I don't know, it's not as nice as the other bridge. Thornton Bridge. So we go left. There's something about Milby, and I can't remember what it was, that's historical. I really can't remember. I'll find out if we do another ride. This road's quite busy. It's one of the main roads to Boroughbridge. Bit of an incline. Now, Boroughbridge has a massive history dating back to Neolithic times and the Devil's Arrows that I mentioned a while ago. It was directly on the Great North Road, the A1. Between London and Edinburgh. Oh, a bit bumpy here. It's now bypassed, but the A1 is now a motorway. But back in the day, it was of enormous importance. It had a large number of pubs and coaching inns. I think it had at one point about 40 pubs. That's an awful lot. I mean, you'd get very drunk if you just had half a beer in each one, wouldn't you? That'd be 20 pints of beer. I don't imagine it still has that many. There's a fountain in the centre, a rather large fountain, which has a canopy built over it, which I'll check, but I think it was 19th century. But the fountain itself used to be the only source of water, well, apart from the river. The only source of drinking water for the whole town. Also, I think Boroughbridge was lit by gaslight until I think it was the mid-1930s. Don't take my word for it. When it switched to electricity. It's got a large market square that we will cycle through. I think the river is the River Yore, not the Swale. And there was a kind of a bit of a navigation section which is no longer used, so that's why you cross two bridges when you go into the centre of the village. And at the moment I think parking is still free, which is very unusual in this day and age. It's also on the Way of the Roses cycle route, so the cafes are a good stopping point for people doing that challenge, or for any cyclists. This road I'm on now is not part of the route. Oh, it's a bit bumpy, bad service. And just beyond Boroughbridge, we'll also cycle through God, my brain's playing tricks. I think my brain is full at the moment with everything that's going on. I had a bit of a blank, bit of a senior moment. This is one of the lanes that you come to if you cross the little bridge at Myton. The name I was looking for is Ouseburn. Oldborough is kind of attached to Boroughbridge these days, and it was a Roman town. There is a Roman villa that you can go and look at. You have to pay to go in. I think it's English heritage. It's also a pretty little village, so we skirt it when we join the Way of the Roses. And then we go through a series of pretty little, quiet little villages, all the way back to Great Ouseburn. What a terrible road surface. Awful, awful. Not far to Boroughbridge. This is not the most pretty road in the world, but it's the road you have to go along if you want to do this cycle tour in a loop like we are. So you used to be able to catch a train from here to Knaresborough. Now Knaresborough station is still very much in existence. It's on the Harrogate-York stopping line. And of course, as you approach Knaresborough station from the Harrogate side, you cross that amazing viaduct across the River Nid, which is an old name probably dating back to Norse times, question mark. It's an amazing viaduct, and if you've been to Knaresborough you can't help but to have seen it. And then immediately the other side of the river is the station. Knaresborough is beautiful. It has a feel of a sort of seasidey feel to it, even though it isn't. And you can cycle along the old railway line from part of the line from Harrogate to Ripley, but the section that branches off to Ripon isn't open. It's just overgrown, as we saw on the other ride earlier this week. And there's where it gets quite busy, so you're cycling on a cycle route, but you're dodging the tourists and pedestrians. Back to this ride, we're just approaching Boroughbridge. Well, we will be approaching Boroughbridge shortly. We join a road where we turn left, a junction by the affordable houses that have been built over the last year, I think, expanding Boroughbridge. Something I'm puzzled about is the fact that we talk about the need to build all these houses, and yet it never brings down the prices of houses. I mean, the houses right at the bottom of the chain, your first time buyer's house. My adult son is desperate to get on the property ladder, but it's prohibitively expensive. As are rents, which is why he came back to live with us. Pays me a bit of bed and board, of course. He doesn't live for free. Right, here we are turning left into Boroughbridge. There's two bridges here. I think we crossed the old navigation first. Oh, it is still used. There's a barge on it, so it must go somewhere. And this is the river. Pretty sure this is the River Yore. Yeah, this is the River Yore. I checked my map. It looks as though there's some not very nice stuff floating down it. Sign of the times. I had a quick look to see where the old railway line was, because you can often see where they were, and I think it comes in from near the A1. I'll check it out properly when I get home. So this is the market square, and this is that fountain. And it's rather grand canopy. So this was the only source of water, drinking water, for the whole town at one point. We're now back on the Way of the Roses cycle route, all the way back to Great Ouseburn. But first, we're branching off to Aldborough, the Roman town, which is on the route, as you might be able to see ahead. Ooh, move that. Here we are. We've got the red rose and we've got the white rose. Red rose for Lancashire, of course, and white rose for Yorkshire. Talking about Lancashire, I fancy doing a little cycle ride into Lancashire soon. Last year and the year before I did a whole load of cycle rides that I didn't record. I just got a bit fed up with recording stuff, and to be honest, it's quite time consuming. But I'll do these little rides again and record them, particularly rides into the Pennines, which can be quite brutal, as you can imagine. Beautiful but brutal. I don't really feel up to doing brutal rides just yet. I need to get my fitness going again, really. But talking about brutal, the last couple of years I went cycling on Dartmoor, which I've only recorded one cycle ride I did on Dartmoor, which in itself was a pretty brutal ride, but I did several more over the last couple of years, and I'm hoping to go back there at some point this year with my bike. This is Boroughbridge, by the way. The village centre is on the right, and I think that's the way to the Roman town. Yes, there's a sign for it on the right. A Roman villa. Hello. Hi. Roman town. But we're going through the Dunsforth, I don't know. Which are sweet little villages along fairly quiet lanes. That's what the Way of the Roses route tends to do if it can. It goes along quiet lanes with some off-road. It only goes on the main roads where there is really no alternative. On this particular section continues from where we were on the ride from last week. We joined the Way of the Roses route just down from Fountains Abbey, if you remember, all the way through Studley Royal Deer Park and through Ripon and along past the route of the old Harrogate-Ripon railway line. And if you carried on the cycle route, we turned off, if you remember, but if we carried on, we would go to the village of Rowcliffe, followed by Boroughbridge, and you come in past the Devil's Arrows. And so this cycle, as part of the route, is an extension of that from Boroughbridge. From Great Ouseburn, it takes you over Old Bridge, which we went over at the start of this ride, and then it takes you on to Benningborough Hall. You cycle through the grounds. Hello. Benningborough Hall is National Trust, and then you end up cycling into York along a cycle path mainly, but some of it's on roads. And the route takes you through the the city of York. We will do that one day. And from there, it takes you to Stamford Bridge, the other side of York, on the Bridlington Road. Stamford Bridge is scene of that other great battle of 1066, when Harold Hardrada came over from Denmark, question mark. Anyway, he met King Harold at Stamford Bridge and they had a scrap, a battle. Harold won, sent Hardrada kicking, I think, or sent him off rather, with his tail between his legs, should I say. And the trouble was, round about the same time, or shortly after, old William came over from Normandy to claim what he believed was his right, and that was the throne of England. And our King Harold was in Stamford Bridge and he had to get to Hastings pretty quickly, which wasn't an easy thing, especially when your soldiers are very tired after battle. And it's probably one of the reasons why the famous Battle of Hastings was won by the Normans, by William. And from Stamford Bridge, if you're doing the Roses Ride, you head to Pocklington, and then you head through the Yorkshire Wolds, through Driffield, and then you do that section that I've recorded before to Bridlington, which is quite pleasant until it takes you through the old Bridlington, which feels like a fishing village, but it's actually not quite on the coast. Maybe it was at some point. Takes you past Burton Agnes Hall and Elizabethan Manor House. We're heading towards the village of Lower Dunsforth, followed by Upper Dunsforth, followed by Great Ouseburn, which is where we started. One of these villages has a vineyard. Which you might think is quite unusual for Yorkshire, but there are quite a few in Yorkshire. We will go past the vineyard. It's so pretty. Quite a breeze today, a warm breeze. And beautiful blossom. Such a shame when that goes. This is the best time of year to cycle and walk and just be. Oh, I forgot to check whether the care home had got in touch about a date for moving Mum. The reason I remembered, I'll let this car go past, was because I know quite a bit of information. I don't pretend that it is all totally accurate, but I try. But someone who was a walking encyclopedia was my mum. And now that brain that was absolutely crammed full of information is dying and is hallucinating and can't remember stuff and getting stuff mixed up. She does remember some stuff from the past, but sometimes she thinks it's the present. She used to know so much stuff, especially historical. I think she taught me more than I ever learnt at school. I mean, she was a teacher by profession. She was a French teacher. That's another thing. She speaks fluent French, or she did speak fluent French. And she has a degree from University College London. She studied there during the war. And she wrote a piece for the local newspaper about the E-Day opposite Buckingham Palace with all the celebrations. She got it published in the paper. And now that lively brain is dying, it's being destroyed. So sad. She even lived in Jamaica for a while, for 5 years in the 1950s. And one of her bridesmaids, when she got married in 1956, came all the way from Jamaica. That's a story in itself. The bridesmaid, who unfortunately has passed away, she was very beautiful, but her name was Glory Robertson, and her brother inherited the chieftainship, do they call it that, of the Robertson clan in Scotland, because obviously he was descended from the Robertsons. I don't know whether any of it was related to slavery or not. I have a feeling it wasn't, because I think it was all legitimate. I think the Robertson guy went over to live in Jamaica and obviously fell in love with a local woman, and Glory and her brothers were the result. I don't know if he's still alive, but he can be found if you Google it. I can't remember his first name. But Glory was in my mum and dad's wedding photos, and she's so beautiful. This, by the way, is Lower Dunsforth. Apparently my mum's other bridesmaid felt a bit inferior compared to the beautiful Glory. Now, Glory used to send us Christmas puddings every year, all the way from Jamaica. And they were absolutely laced with rum. They were really, really, really laced with rum. And really, really, really nice. But sadly, she passed away a few years ago, as did virtually all of my mum's old friends. It's another listed phone box. That's another thing so sad about my mum. She outlived all her friends. I don't think any of them are alive anymore. It's so sad. So this is the pretty little village of Lower Dunsforth, and that is the church. And when we come to Upper Dunsforth, you would expect Upper Dunsforth to be on a hill, wouldn't you? Up above Lower Dunsforth, but it isn't really, it's all fairly flat. wish I hadn't talked about my mum, because it's setting off my stress and worry, anxiety levels again. So, let's turn up my sleeve. So I won't talk about it anymore. Flies or bits of dandelion pluck. This is the vineyard on the left. And it says it's open. And this brings us into Upper Dunsforth, where I shall change my GoPro battery. There we go. Oh, I'm in a high gear. Move down a bit. That's a pretty tree. So this is the village before Great Ouseburn, where we started. Pretty like all the other villages. yes, I was telling you about my Dartmoor cycle rides and how I hope to do them again this year. And as you can imagine, they're pretty challenging. Especially the main climb up onto Dartmoor from Myton-on-Swale. And any climb from Widdicombe is challenging. But the other year, also down in Devon, I did a bit of cycling around the South Devon as well, which was really nice but challenging, all around Totnes area and South Brent, places like that. I didn't record them. I went in February, so it's an unusual time of year, but I was going to a friend's father's funeral in Cornwall, so I took my bike and I did a really nice ride along the estuary. I attempted it again in October, but I skidded on some wet sand on a country lane and damaged my bike, and I didn't break anything, but I got a few cuts and bruises, so I couldn't ride after that because my bike was off the road, so I did walking instead. But the estuary is peaceful, and you get the trains, of course. It's the main Great Western Railway. And it's a cycle path, and there's a cycle path goes through Dawlish, and it's unusual in that you have to climb up some steps, quite a lot of steps, and there's a kind of a place where you can push your bike up at the side of the steps. You wouldn't cycle up them. Little lake on the right. I don't think it is normally a lake. I think it's part of the flooding that we've had. A few waterfowl on it. Oh, a little rabbit. It's quite extensive if it is flooding. We're just coming into Great Ouseburn, where we started off. The we're parked right at the bottom of the main street.